Today I'll be tying Ken's Indestructible Clouser. This is a true guide fly and a workhorse on the saltwater flats. Today I'm going to tie one of my more popular flies. I use it every day when I'm guiding people on the flats of Tampa Bay, and it is a simple Clouser Minnow, but I call it the Indestructible Clouser because the materials that it's made out of and the way that I glue it all together just makes it really hold up. Anyone who fishes on the flats knows there's a lot of other species that tend to grab the fly. Pufferfish, Spanish Max, bluefish. There's so many toothy critters, cudas, depending on where you're fishing. But if you use a traditional Clouser, they're usually dead in one cast. You know, all the deer hair is going to come off. So I figured out a few materials and a way to put it together so it stands up to all of those toothy critters. So let's move on to the tying. So the material list to make these flies is pretty short. The winging fibers that I use are Wapsi product, Unique Hair. This stuff is nylon, it's crimped, and it's super durable. Small, medium, and large bead eyes. Lead eyes, I normally use red or chartreuse. And the hook that I choose is gonna be the Mustad S74 SMP DT, which is 2x heavy and 4x long, and that long length is actually why this fly doesn't get bit off quickly by the toothy predators that are on the flats. So the pattern I'm going to tie today is going to be chartreuse and white. This is probably the color pattern that I use the majority of the time. And the cool thing about this Unique Hair is they're in about 10-inch long lengths, which when you separate out the amount that you are going to use, you actually pull out about the exact amount that you'll need to tie two flies. So what I do is I'll cut the first piece off, and then I fold it, then I come in and I cut it in half again, and then I'm going to set them on the side and they're ready to go. Then I'm going to do the same exact thing with the chartreuse. So sometimes I use it maybe a tiny bit less with the chartreuse. So I'll separate it out, throw that back up on the desk, divide it in half. There we go. I got two pieces of that. Now once you get started on this fly, it's really a simple fly to tie. I can normally tie about a dozen of them in under a half hour. So let's get going on this fly. I've got the hook and the lead eyes pulled out, ready to go. So what I like to do is tie in just a little bit in front of the hook point and get a real good base of thread in. Pull that off. And I like to get a nice base of thread for the tie-in point of my eyes, which is going to be just a little bit out in front of the hook point. There we go. Get a bunch of turns on it, and then some stabilizing wraps underneath, nice and tight, and that's going to keep that thing straight on the shank. And at this point, come in with my first couple of drops of super glue. And I want that to permeate all the way down into the wraps. I'm going to come back and get a bunch of wraps. Cover that up, really solidify it with a few more under wraps. That's looking pretty good. Now I'm ready to put the fly together. So I'll reach over, grab my white material, and I used to call this the 60-second clouser because you can tie it so quick when you get used to it. So what I do is I'm just going to wrap this right onto the hook shank, drop it back, and I'm going to seat it right into that glue, and then she's on. And then what I do is I usually just with my fingers spread that around the whole hook, you know, when I wrap it back, tighten it in snug, a couple of wraps up in front and then back behind. Next thing I like to do is pull out some ice wing fiber or ice wing or just ice dubbing, you know, whichever one I have laying on the desk. I'll give this a little bit realism, the illusion of having some gills on it. So I'll just pull out a little bit of that, just give it a little color. This isn't the easiest stuff to dub, but when you're making just a little accent, it doesn't have to be neat. It's just a little dash of color. And with that, the bottom of the fly is complete. I like to now just flip it in the vise. Then it's time to bring in the chartreuse color and complete the fly. So time to put the chartreuse in now. And I do the chartreuse a little bit different. Rather than wrap it around the hook shank, I like to wrap it around the tie-in thread instead. And what that does is, after I even it, it gives me the ability to control that I have exactly half on each side of the hook. So I'm going to set it up to where I want my tie-in point to be, and then I'm going to spread it over, and then I'll come in and just get a crimp on it, and you can see I've pinched it down. I'll pull it back a little bit, and then you can release it. A couple of nice tight wraps, and that one's done. Quick whip finish. And we have a complete fly. Now, oh, she didn't want to let go of it. I like the way it looks, but now we're going to make it totally bomb-proof. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back in, and we're going to hit this spot right in here, in between the eyes, and we're going to kind of give it enough glue that it turns from the eyes up to the head into one solid piece. And then I'll flip it over and glue it all around. I'll spin it a few times and just let that soak all the way through, and you'll notice you won't see it on the video, but that super glue just gets in that nylon, and it really, you know, turns the head almost like you were doing an epoxy head or something like that. But it really solidifies the head, and I never have much problem with these spinning around on the hook, even after, you know, dozens of fish. Now you'll notice that there's quite a bit of space from the dumbbell eyes up to the eye of the hook. A lot of bare shank showing, and that's by design. If you happen to run into, you know, bluefish, cuda, mackerel that are up on the edges of the flats, they're most likely going to hit it somewhere around the eyes, and their teeth are going to come down on bare shank, where, you know, if you were to do that with a traditional clouser and they'd hit up at the head of it, their teeth are coming down on your line, and the second you strip set, you know, there's nothing there and your fly's gone. This solves that problem.